dear students, welcome back to the class once again. Hope you all are keeping well. So we'll be doing the topic which we left last time. In the previous class we started the union executive, and within the union executive we discussed the president and the vice president, and today we'll continue with the same chapter, union executive, with the other two executives of our country, that is the prime minister and the council of ministers. So in the previous class we discussed about the president, who is also the nominal executive of our country, and the vice president. Here today we'll be discussing about the prime minister, who is in real term the real executive head of our country, who possesses the real powers of our country. So how is the prime minister of our country elected? So in the first chapter which we discussed, that was Lok Sabha, that was the process through which the prime minister gets elected. Every after 5 years, general elections are held, and in the general elections all the parties, all the national parties, regional parties, they contest the election, and whichever party comes in majority, they form the government. As I told you in the previous class, the total strength of Lok Sabha is 552, but at present we have 545, including the two nominated members from the Anglo-Indian community, nominated by the president of our country. So 545, let us take it. So the party which comes in majority, they form the government. Now, who is made the prime minister? Number one, the head of the majority party, or the leader of the majority party, or the party which contests the election under a particular leader showing his face as a prime ministerial candidate. He of course is being elected as the prime minister from among the party. Elected, and the elected prime minister of the party, elected head of the party, who is been declared as the prime minister of the country, is appointed by the president of our country. So president appoints the prime minister, and other council of ministers are appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. So first of all, again same thing. What are the qualifications required to become the prime minister? It is simple. That is not the question that what are the qualifications required to become the prime minister. The question is, what are the qualifications required to become the member of Lok Sabha, that we have done in the earlier class. So prime minister and the council of ministers. So who was our first prime minister of our country? So everybody knows, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So here I have given the list of prime ministers from the first prime minister till date, Narendra Modi. The first prime minister was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and after that till today we have the prime minister. So Narendra Modi is the present prime minister of our country. Now he is under the second term. He is now continuing his second term as the prime minister of our country. Now, whenever we discuss about the prime minister, there should not be a confusion that a prime minister is a real head or the nominal head. So in clear sense, prime minister is elected directly by the people, and he possesses the real powers of the executive. Prime minister is the real executive head of our country. The real power lies in the hand of the prime minister and the council of ministers. In the previous class, when we discussed about the president and his powers, we discussed about so many powers: legislative powers, executive powers, judicial powers. So let me clear you once again. All those powers he utilizes on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of ministers. Now, Prime Minister is appointed by the President of our country, and the other ministers who all are the helping hand of the Prime Minister, because Prime Minister alone cannot do the entire work. So he needs some ministers to help him, like a finance minister, home ministers, and railway minister. So many ministries are there, so they are to be looked after by the Prime Minister, so it cannot be done by himself. So he allocate portfolios to the member of the parliament who all are in his party, who belongs to his party. So other ministers are also appointed by the president, appointed by the president on the advice of the Prime Minister, on the advice of the Prime Minister. So who forms the Council of Ministers? It is the President, because President appoints them, but in real sense it is the decision made by the Prime Minister alone whom to give the ministry. That is decided by the Prime Minister. Now, there are three categories of ministers. There are three categories of ministers that we'll discuss afterwards. Now, Prime Minister. Who can become the Prime Minister? The member of the Parliament. Member of the Parliament. Of course, member of the Parliament. Now, member of the Parliament means we normally take it as a member of Lok Sabha. But we have many instances, examples that a member of Rajya Sabha also became the Prime Minister of our country. Now, let me tell you one by one. Members as well as non-members can also become the member of the Parliament. Now, who can become the member of Parliament? Number one, member of Lok Sabha, either Rajya Sabha. And in the year 1996, in the year 1996, SD, let me tell you, you might have heard his name in the list of the Prime Minister. His name is also given, SD. Okay, SD Dev. SD Devgowda became the Prime Minister. He was not the member of either house. He was not the member of Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Still, he became the Prime Minister. How it is possible? There is a provision in our constitution, my dear. Even the non-member can become the minister or the Prime Minister. I'll tell you how. Now, another example, let me tell you, 1997, Indra Kumar Gujral, I.K. Gujral, Indra Kumar Gujral, he also became the Prime Minister. Yes, he was the member of Rajya Sabha. But this, S.G. Devgowda was not the member of Lok Sabha or either the Rajya Sabha, but still he became the Prime Minister. I'll tell you the provision. One more example let me give you. Now, in 2004, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, he also became the Prime Minister, and he was the member of Rajya Sabha. So the question arises, can a non-member become the Prime Minister? Yes, there is a provision. Even the non-member of the Parliament can become the Prime Minister. But there is a certain condition. From the date of appointment, or from the day of appointment, within 6 months, he needs to be elected. He should be elected in the either house. That means from the day of appointment, within 6 months, how many months time he has? He has been given 6 months, and within these 6 months, he must be elected in any of the house, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. If he fails to get elected, then the government will be dissolved, let us say. So, S.D. Devgowda later on became the member of Rajya Sabha. So he continued his office. So if a question is asked, can a non-member become the Prime Minister or a minister? Yes, of course. Even the non-member can become the Prime Minister or the minister. But from the day of appointment, within the 6 months of the day of appointment, he must be elected in either house of the parliament, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Many examples are there, even a non-member. Suppose the person contested the election but lost the election but still was made the minister. Like our late Arun Jaitley. He contested the election but he was defeated, but he was given the post of a finance minister. In the previous term, before this term, the first NDA government, which completed 5 years full term, there also one example was there is Smriti Zubain Irani. She also was not the member of parliament. She was also made the textile minister. First of all, he was made the HRD minister, human resource development minister. Then she was elected to the Rajya Sabha. So now she became the member of Rajya Sabha. So many examples are there. Even a non-member can become the member of the parliament, but from the day of appointment, within 6 months, he must be elected in the house. So that is all about the member and the non-member. Member means the member who is elected and now is the member of parliament. And non-member who did not contest the election or who contested but lost the election. They are not the member of parliament. That is non-member. Okay. Now, the examples I gave you, these are the examples of non-members who later on became the member of parliament. Now, next one is formation of Council of Ministers. Let me tell you, it is decided who is going to be the finance minister, who is going to be the railway minister, who is going to be the home minister. Everything are decided by our Prime Minister. So the undisputed right to become the undisputed right to distribute or allocate portfolios is in the hand of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister alone decides to whom should I give the ministry. So he checks, he goes through every detail of the member of parliament who should be given. So eligible, capable candidates are given the important portfolios, important ministries. That is about the formation of Council of Ministers. So what is mean by Council of Ministers? All the ministers together. Let me tell you one by one. There are 3 categories of ministers. Number 1. Let me tell you. So I am going to rub this one. Categories of ministers. Let us discuss one by one. The first one is cabinets. Cabinet minister. Number 2, state minister, and number 3, deputy minister. State ministers, deputy ministers. So all these ministers together are known as Council of Ministers. So one by one, who all are cabinet ministers, state minister, deputy ministers. So I have given a chart over there, you can go through it. The cabinet ministers are the important ministers, 15 to 20 top level ministers are there. Ministers of state, deputy ministers, so chart I have given it, all the important functions and their duties are mentioned over there and their powers are mentioned over there, you can go through it. Now, let us come back. The cabinet ministers are the most important ministers who hold important portfolios. Important ministries. Sports minister cannot be called as a cabinet minister, but other categories of ministers are there. Like some of the important ministries, let me tell you, like railway minister. So, let me tell you, I am writing it over here. First of all, home minister. Home Minister. Number two, Finance. Finance Minister. Number three, let us say Home Minister, Finance Minister, then Railway. Railway is also important. Number four, Defense. Defense is also there. Defense, apart from that, a few more are there. Let me tell you. Defense. Yes, defense is also there. Then number five, we have External Affairs. External Affairs Minister means Foreign Minister. External Affairs Ministers, Foreign Minister is also there. Then apart from all this, other ministers are also there, but I consider them as very important ministers, and they are known as cabinet. And cabinet is the most important minister. Cabinet is the most important ministry who hold important ministry as well as the power of deciding the important policies of the country with the help of the Prime Minister as its head is very much known. Now, next one is State Ministers. State Ministers. So, State Ministers means they may or may not be given the independent charges. They may or may not be given the independent charges. Like a Defense Minister is there. Along with Defense Minister, 2 or 3 ministers are also given in extra. They are given just to be a part of that group, but they are not given the responsibilities. They may or may not be given the independent charges. They are just a part of the ministry. They are not given the responsibility. So they are known as State Ministers. Then the third one we have is Deputy Ministers. Deputy Ministers are the junior ministers, young ministers who have become the member of parliament for the first time, and they are to assist the senior ministers. They are to assist the senior ministers. Now, like a finance minister is also there, and the junior minister will be assisting the senior minister. So here two important things. The senior minister will get the help of a junior minister, and the young and the junior minister will get the experience, learn how to be a good political leader, or how to dispense the policies properly. They learn, they get experiences from the senior minister. So they are deputy ministers. They are below the senior ministers. Finance minister, defense minister, they are senior, old, they are experienced. So the young ones, they work under them, so they learn many things from the ministers. So this is all about the cabinet, state, and the deputy ministers. So there is a question regarding the difference between Union Council of Ministers and Deputy Ministers. I hope you all have understood this part. There are 3 categories of ministers: cabinet ministers, state ministers, deputy ministers. And cabinet minister, these are some of the important ministers who hold important ministries. They come under cabinet ministers. They are very, very important ministers. Now let me tell you. Now let me explain you the differences between. Just listen to me. Differences between the Union Council of Ministers and the cabinet. On one hand, Council of Ministers. Let me clarify it. Council. Okay. Cabinet. And the other side, cabinet versus, or cabinet on the one side and Council of Ministers. there should not be a confusion regarding the difference between the cabinet and the council of ministers. So let me tell you, council of ministers, all the three categories of ministers, cabinet minister, state ministers, deputy minister, all these three together are known as council of ministers. All these three together are known as council of ministers. So once again, cabinet minister, state ministers, deputy ministers, all these three categories of ministers together are known as council of ministers. I hope you understood it. And cabinet is a part of council of ministers. Cabinet is a part of council of ministers. So there is no much differences. Cabinet, when I talk council of ministers, this is also here. Cabinet minister is also here. Cabinet minister, state minister, deputy minister, all these three together are known as council of ministers. And this alone, when we differentiate between these two, this alone, first one, cabinet is a part of council of ministers. Now let me tell you some of the differences. Council of ministers is a wider body, and cabinet minister is a small body which is a part of council of minister. Then most of the important decisions are taken by the cabinet ministers. Under the leadership of prime minister, cabinet ministers take all the important decisions. Cabinet meetings are held, conducted. But here, whenever there is a meetings held, this council of ministers, state minister, deputy minister, they are not at all invited. They are of not much importance. So important decisions are taken by them under the guidance of the prime minister and the council of ministers. So their presence is not important. If they invite any of the ministers, okay, be a part of the meeting, then that's okay. But the decision, the idea generations, all this are done by the cabinet ministers, and that is approved and finalized by the prime minister. Prime minister has the full right or the sole right to decide everything is decided in the cabinet meetings. So cabinet is a part of council of ministers. They meet frequently. The cabinet ministers, they meet frequently. It is not that during the sessions only all the ministers from different states, they go to Delhi and attend the parliamentary session. It's not like that. They are always ready because they are the one who in real sense are running the administration of our country. Prime minister and the cabinet, they are the one. They make the policy, decision, administration, everything is looked after by them. So other council ministers during the session, during the budget session or a winter session or a monsoon session, they go to the parliament. It doesn't mean that they are useless. No, they also have been given certain ministries. They are allotted with ministries. They also do their work, but they are the important one. As I told you, finance important, defense important. All these are important. So that is one. So this is the differences between cabinet and the council of ministers. So they meet frequently, they meet rarely. They meet frequently, they meet rarely. So that is all about the difference between the cabinet and the council of ministers. So the next one, the next topic. I hope you all are getting my point. I'm trying to make the subject more and more easier. If you go through it properly, you'll understand the system of our country. We know we have a parliamentary form of government. Prime minister is there, council of ministers is there, how they are elected, what is their duty. So if you listen to me properly, I think you'll understand everything in detail. The next one we have tenure. The tenure is, what is the tenure of the prime minister? 5 years. Because the tenure of the Lok Sabha is also 5 years. The tenure of Rajya Sabha, there is no term of Rajya Sabha, but the member of Lok Sabha has a term of 5 years. So we are talking about the same. The member of parliament, that is member of Lok Sabha, they have a term of 5 years. And what is the tenure or the term of the prime minister? Term of the prime minister, 5 years. So the majority party forms the government. The party which gets more than 274 seats in the parliament, they form the government. More than half. 545 is the total numbers. So more than half will be 274. So 273, 274. Whichever party gets this number of seats, they form the government. And this government continues up to 5 years. If they successfully follow the constitution, then they can complete the 5 years of full term. So the normal term of the Lok Sabha or the normal term of the Prime Minister is 5 years. Normal term of the Prime Minister is normal term of Prime Minister is 5 years. But sometime what happens is that the government which is formed is not of full majority. Suppose, for example, 274 seats are required, but the government was or is formed, including the parties, other parties. In that case, there is a problem, and that type of government is known as coalition government. That type of government is known as coalition government, or we call in Hindi Mili-Juli Sarkar. Coalition government. So in a coalition government, sometimes there is always a threat that the supporting party, they may withdraw the support, and when the support is withdrawn, the government falls. And sometimes the vote of no confidence is also passed by the opposition, and in that case, if the vote of no confidence is passed, my dear, the government is dissolved again. Prime Minister has to resign it. Excuse me. Prime Minister has to resign. So once the Prime Minister resigns, the government also falls. So normal term of Lok Sabha is 5 years, but it can be dissolved before it also. It can be dissolved before the completion of the 5 years term. So that is all about the 10 years. So now stop. So now we'll be discussing the functions of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The first one is policy making, which comes under the executive functions. Policy making. So as I told you earlier also, Prime Minister is the most powerful person of our country who has been given the power to frame policies of our country. So all the important policies of the country for the better administration is formulated and is implemented by him. Now policy making. Union Cabinet. Prime Minister along with the Cabinet Minister frame the policies and is approved from the Parliament. So all the policies gets approved from the Parliament, and that is to run the administration of our country. Now Cabinet coordinates the working of all departments of the government. That is why the policy which are to be made or implemented has to be done in a coordinated manner. And regarding the administration of the country, policies are made by the government. But apart from that also, like foreign policy is also decided by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers or the Cabinet Ministers. We have a planning commission, Niti Ayog. Niti, Planning Commission. This Planning Commission's main job, who is the head of the Planning Commission? Prime Minister is the head. So Planning Commission's main objective is to plan how to run the administration for the 5 years. The 5 years, within the 5 years, because the term is 5 years, within this 5 years, what type of policies should be introduced or enforced on the country? How to achieve the objectives? Financial slowdown, financial deficit in the country, improve the education system, to invite the foreign investors to invest in our country. So all these are decided by our Planning Commission. Domestic policy. Should we give importance to agriculture or should we give importance to industrial sector? Everything needs to be decided in the 5 years plan. So accordingly, the resources which our country has gets allocated in a proper way. So decisions are to be taken, the policies are to be framed in a wise manner which reflects and gives us back the good outcome for the nation. So that is all about the policy making. Now administration is run by the government. We have 29 state governments, that is also okay. But as a prime minister of the entire nation, whole nation, it is the duty of the prime minister and the cabinet ministers to frame policy for the better administration of the country. That is also decided by the prime minister and the cabinet minister. So as I told you earlier also, prime minister along with the cabinet minister, 5 or 6 cabinet ministers, they are the real administrators who look after the administration of the entire country, and they meet frequently. For that only I told. Next one is legislative functions. So all the important, as you know that the government is all in all powerful, though they are the most important member of the parliament who has umbrella of the government. Under the government umbrella, all the members of the government are there, and legislations are done in the legislature, and these legislations are done by the government, and the members of the government or the council of ministers, they are the one who are to introduce bills, to get the bills passed in the parliament. So all is done by the members of the government. So as a member of the parliament, all ministers take full participation in the legislative work. All the members. As a suppose I am not a member of the government, those who are not a member of the government, they even take part in the legislation process which takes place in the parliament. It doesn't mean that only the government and the council of ministers, they are the one to run the parliament. It's not like that. Other members are also there who deliberately they take part in the formation of the government. So let me tell you one thing, my dear. It doesn't mean that the party which lost the election, they have nothing to do. They can also serve the nation. They can also serve the nation by guiding the government in a proper way, and that is known as opposition. So opposition, they guides the government to work in a proper way. So whenever government does any whenever government takes any wrong decisions, the opposition always tries to highlight those things so that they can rectify for the betterment of the country. So that is all about the opposition. So most of the bills, you know that members of the parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha members, most of the bills are introduced in Lok Sabha, and these bills, whichever are introduced by the member of the government, or we can say the ministers. 95% bills are introduced. 95% of the bills introduced in the parliament by the ministers. They also have to work. They also need to work. So they introduce bills in the parliament, and 90% of the time of the parliament is utilized. 90% of the time of the parliament is utilized for handling the government business. Government business also has to be done. So that is done by the ministers and all. So bills not supported by the council of ministers cannot really be passed. Whichever bill not supported by the council of ministers cannot be passed. So definitely, in order to pass the bill, the consent of the entire member of the government must be there. So definitely there cannot be two views in the government, because if there will be a different views in the government or in a political party, then definitely it cannot become successful. That is why whenever you are with one party, you have to stand with the flow of the government. That we'll discuss again. So that is all about the legislative function. So all the important legislations are introduced or completed by the government. That is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Most of the ministers, they introduce the bill in the House, get it passed in the Lok Sabha, sends it to Rajya Sabha, Rajya Sabha sends it back, and then it is sent to the President for its assent. So finally, bills are passed in the Parliament. So that is the legislative process of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So now the last part which we are going to discuss is the position and the powers of the Prime Minister. The position and the powers of the Prime Minister. So we'll discuss over here. So welcome back again. So now the last topic is all about the position and powers of the Prime Minister of our country. Position and powers of the Prime Minister of our country. As you know that he is the head of our country, so that we all know it. Now, first important power and function of the Prime Minister is that formation of a Council of Ministers. Formation of Council of Minister. So first important function of the Prime Minister is he forms the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers means, in the beginning only I told you, so Prime Minister is the one who decides whom to give the ministry. So he decides and he selects, and those names are given to the President, and President appoints them. So the entire formation of the Council of Ministers, like the Cabinet Minister, State Minister, Deputy Minister, is done by the Prime Minister of our country. Now next one is again the same thing. Allocation of portfolios. It is similar. Allocation of portfolios. Whom to give the ministry is decided by the Prime Minister. Whom to give the ministry. That means Prime Minister has the undisputed right to allocate portfolios to the members. He checks the eligibility and the capability of a member, and he allocates portfolio to the person. That is decided by the Prime Minister. But in a coalition government, he takes the decision, he takes the advice, and or we can say he consults the other party members while allocating portfolios, because their support is also there to run the government, so their involvement in the decision making is also given. But in a government with the full majority, there no need to consult with the other party members. So you have the full majority, so there is no fear of getting the government dissolved, so you can decide it. But in a coalition government, the Prime Minister takes the we can say that he consults with the other party allies in deciding to allocate portfolios. Now next one we have is reshuffling. Number 2, we can say reshuffling. Reshuffling. What is the meaning of reshuffling? That means he had formed the Council of Ministers. A is given the Finance Minister, B is made the Defense Minister. In this way, all the list of ministries are given to the members of the party. Now, at any time, he can reshuffle, he can change the ministries. Why it is done? Because whenever a ministry is given to a particular person, if he is unable to do the work properly, if he is unable to discharge his duties properly, and there is a lack of effectiveness and efficiency in his work, then he will be removed, and someone else who is capable of handling that ministry will be made the minister. So the reshuffling can be done at any time, as many times. How many times he wants to do, he can do it. If I don't teach properly, I'll be removed, right? The same way, if the ministers, they don't do the work properly given by the Prime Minister, then definitely he'll be removed, and somebody else who is capable to handle that ministry can be made the minister. So that can be done as many times as the Prime Minister likes. That is called reshuffling. Reshuffling means making a changes again and again. That is known as reshuffling of ministries. Now, the third one is Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. Now I am not going to write the number, just I am going to tell you. Now the third one is he is the head of the cabinet. So Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. All the cabinet meetings takes place, and the cabinet ministers attend the cabinet meeting. Whatever decisions are taken, discussions goes on, or the policies decisions are taken, final decision is in the hand of the Prime Minister. So Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. Meeting goes on, all the ministers, they can give their views and ideas, but the final decisions will be done or taken by the Prime Minister. So Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. Now number four, let me tell you, removal of ministers. Before one I told you reshuffling, he can reshuffle. Suppose suppose I am the finance minister and B is the sports minister. So I can be sent there, and the sports minister can be made the finance minister, and finance minister can be made the sports minister. Reshuffling. That means it can be changed anytime. But removal of the minister, let me tell you, removal. Removal of the ministers. The Prime Minister made you the minister. The Prime Minister gave you a Ministry of Finance. You are not doing the work properly. You are not capable to handle the pressure of the financial stability in our country. You will be removed. So Prime Minister has the power to remove you from the ministry allocated to you by him. So Prime Minister gives you. But sometime, if you think that I am appointed by the President, I will not follow your advice, then in that case, Prime Minister will ask the President to remove the person who is not at all listening to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister's decisions are to be followed by the entire government. If they don't follow, then definitely there will be a problem. So, removal. Prime Minister can remove the minister at any time. Ministry will be snatched away from him, and he will just be a member of the parliament. He will not be removed from the parliament. He will just be a member of the parliament, but ministry will be snatched away. Now, next one we have is chief coordinator. So, Prime Minister is the head. Prime Minister is the head, so he is a chief coordinator. He is the chief coordinator. Chief coordinator. So various ministries are there. Ministries are there. So he being the chief of the entire council of minister, or the head of the council of minister, he need to coordinate the working of various ministries. He has to maintain a very peaceful atmosphere between all the ministers, because all the ministers belong to the Prime Minister. So Prime Minister's helping hand must work smoothly and with coordination. So that coordination is maintained by the Prime Minister. So Prime Minister looks after the working of the various ministries properly. There should not be any dispute between the ministries, because you are a finance minister and the other one is an external affairs minister. There should be a good communication between all the ministries which are headed by the Prime Minister. So Prime Minister coordinates the working of various ministries. Next one, Prime Minister is the leader. Prime Minister is the leader of the parliament. So as you know that Prime Minister is the head of the majority party. So definitely he is the head of the government also. He is the head of the parliament also. So head of the parliament. I think number 7. So head of the parliament, leader of the parliament. So why it is so? Leader of the parliament. Speaker is the leader? No, it's not like that. Leader of the parliament is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the head of the parliament, or we can say the leader of the parliament. So, though it is presided over by the Speaker, all the important decisions and the work to continue in the parliament are decided by the Prime Minister, and that is followed by the Speaker. So, Speaker Prime Minister decides the agenda and the Speaker continues that in the Lok Sabha. So over in all, Prime Minister is the leader of the Parliament. Now, Prime Minister also has the power to dissolve. The Prime Minister also has the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha. So why he will do so? Why he will do so? Let me tell you. I am the Prime Minister and you all are the ministers. If you don't follow my orders, if you try to dominate me, so definitely I will not tolerate that. If you are not listening to the Prime Minister, if you are not following the Prime Minister, then definitely I am the head of the government. So I'll get the government dissolved. I'll dissolve the government. So in that case, who will suffer? The entire ministry will suffer. So Prime Minister is a head. If the head is cut, the body will come to an end. So that is all about the power. So Prime Minister gets the Parliament dissolved or the government dissolved. Now, sometimes what happens is that before the completion of the 5 years term, suppose for example after 5 months the government is going to complete the 5 years term. So the Prime Minister can advise the President to dissolve the government before 5 months. Before 5 months. So that he will get extra time to prepare for the election. He'll get extra time to prepare for the election. This is also done. So on that, I told you in the beginning also when we discussed about the President can dissolve the Parliament. So yes, of course he can dissolve if it is unconstitutional. But other reason is that if he is advised by the Prime Minister, then that time also he can dissolve the government. So that is all about dissolve of the Parliament. Now next one we have is role in economic planning. So all the important economic plannings are done by the Prime Minister. As I told you, Prime Minister is the head of the Planning Commission, which now is known as Niti Aayog. So Prime Minister is the head. Prime Minister is the head of the Niti Aayog, or we can say by default he is the chairperson of Niti Aayog, ex officio chairperson of Niti Aayog. So that is all about the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission which plans for 5 years. The chairman of the Planning Commission is the Prime Minister. Now next one, Prime Minister is a leader of the nation. As a leader of the country, he has every right to take decisions for the betterment of our country. He has every right to maintain good relations with the other nations. Foreign nations are there. So, neighboring countries are there. Whatever relations should we keep with the other nations, all these are decided by the Prime Ministers. So he is the leader of the nation. He is the guardian of our country. We all are the children of the Prime Minister. So whenever we are in trouble, he is the one to sort out our problem. Like now we have a problem, big problem going on in our country. So he is fighting for us. He is trying to bring peace within the country, all by coming out with different ideas for the betterment of the people of our country. Now, the next one, during emergency, what is the role of a Prime Minister? What is the role of Prime Minister during emergency? What is the role of a Prime Minister during emergency? As you know that in the previous class I discussed about 3 types of emergencies: national emergency, financial emergency, and constitutional emergency. During that period, what type of role is played by our Prime Ministers? As I told you, President declares emergency, but the decision is taken by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers decides whether the emergency is to be imposed or not. If emergency is decided and imposed, then it will be declared by the President. That is why it is known as President rule. So, emergency powers of the President. we know that emergency powers are given to the president. But in reality, that power is in the hand of the Prime Minister. So President declares emergency on the advice of the cabinet. President declares emergency on the advice of the cabinet. So this is about the emergency powers of the Prime Minister of our country. So many are there, and even the Prime Minister is the chief advisor. Prime Minister is the chief advisor of the president. So we know that our country is run in the name of the president. Our country is run in the name of the president, and Prime Minister is the link between the parliament and the president. President needs to be informed what is happening in the parliament. So Prime Minister is the link between the parliament and the president. So link is the president. So this is all about from our topic, the Union Executive, the Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers. So now let us recap. So we discussed about the Prime Minister and the formation of Council of Ministers, and then we discussed about the appointment. Appointment is done by the President of our country. There are three categories of ministers: cabinet ministers, state ministers, deputy ministers. Then we discussed about the tenure. The tenure of the Prime Minister is 5 years. Then we discussed the functions of the Prime Minister. His most important function is policy making function, which with the help of the cabinet he does that. The next one we have is the administrative function, then legislative functions, and at last we discuss about the powers and functions, powers and real positions of the Prime Minister of our country. The first important power and function of the Prime Minister, we discuss formation of Council of Ministers. Number 2, allocation of portfolios. That number 3, reshuffling of the portfolios. Then he, the chairman of the cabinet, removal of ministers. He can remove the ministers at any moment if they don't work properly. He is the chief coordinator. He is the chief coordinator of the different ministries working under him. Then the next one is leader of the parliament. Leader of the parliament. And then powers and dissolutions of the parliament. Role of economic planning. Role as a leader of the nation. Role of PM during emergencies. Now, the last very important topic we are going to discuss is, let me tell you, very important topic. So now the last topic is all about collective and individual responsibility. Collective and individual responsibility of the member of the parliament. Member of the parliament. So what is meant by individual responsibility and what is meant by collective responsibility? So let me tell you once again. So individually all the ministers, individual ministers are responsible to the Prime Minister, because Prime Minister has given them the ministries. So they are responsible to the Prime Minister. Very simple. Individually the ministers are responsible to the Prime Minister. Okay, and if they don't do the work properly, then they will be removed by the Prime Minister. If you don't do the individual responsibility, individually, if you don't do the work properly and with full responsibility, responsibly, then you will be removed. So individually you are responsible to the Prime Minister. But as a whole, collectively as a whole, you are responsible to the Parliament. You are responsible to the Parliament. So individually the ministers are responsible to the Prime Minister as well, and collectively they are responsible to the Parliament. So in a very simple term, if you do any mistake, the entire government will be blamed for that. You will be responsible for that. So who will be responsible? Who will be accountable? Prime Ministers will be accountable. You are responsible and accountable to the Prime Minister, but Prime Minister along with other ministers are accountable to the entire country. So the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers sink and swim together. They sink and swim together. That means if one minister is in trouble, the entire ministry is in trouble. So in order to help that minister, entire ministry will come there to bring you out of that trouble. So sink. If you are sinking, everybody will sink. If you will swim, everyone will swim together. So the ministers sink and swim together. You are not different. You are the member of the party, so it does not mean that you can do whatever you like. If you don't do the work properly and smoothly, being the minister of a particular ministry, then definitely that will bring bad name for the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister will be accountable to the Parliament. So whenever we talk about the Parliament, Parliament is the voice of the nation. We are the one represented there by the members, so they will be accountable to the nation. So resignation of the minister, resignation of the Prime Minister will lead to the resignation of the entire Council of Ministers. So I think you understood it. If the Prime Minister resigns, the entire government will resign. Entire government will resign. So if any of the minister does not do the work properly, then definitely who will be answerable? The minister will be answerable, but as a whole, Prime Minister will be answerable. Sometime you might have seen in the proceedings of Lok Sabha, whenever any of the minister is in trouble or are completely dominated by the opposition, at that time, to help the minister out of the trouble, Prime Minister stands and confronts the opposition. So whenever a minister is in trouble, Prime Minister comes forward and tries to protect them. So that is the role of a Prime Minister as a leader leading from the front. It is not the leader leading from the back. Ministers are at the front and the Prime Minister is at the back. No, it's not like that. So leader must lead from the front. Whatever situation may be, Prime Minister leads from the front, guiding the other ministers to follow him. So that is all about the individual. So once again, individually you are responsible to the Prime Minister, but collectively you are responsible to the Parliament. So as a whole, you are not doing your personal work, you are doing the work of the nation. So you have to do the work properly and smoothly. If you are not capable of doing so, you will be removed. If you are not capable of handling the ministry, you will be removed. But if a vote of no confidence is passed against the minister, that particular minister, that minister has to resign. But if the vote of no confidence is passed against the Prime Minister and the government, the whole government has to resign. Whole government has to resign. But if Prime Minister resigns, the entire government will fall. But if one minister resigns, that will not make a difference. For that, some other members are there who can hold that position. So this is all about from this chapter. The Union Executive, so President, the Vice President, we have discussed in the first tutorial, and in this tutorial we discussed about the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So hope you all have understood it. So now I am going to give you the home assignment. You can download the home assignment from the link given in the description box. From there you can get the download link. Please download it and try to complete it. Now apart from all this, you must listen to the video and go to the video whenever you get time, so that your understanding on the particular subject will improve and increase, and it will boost your general knowledge also. And to know about the different ministers of our country at present, you can go through your textbooks. Sorry, you don't have a textbook. You can go through the Google also. From there you can get the list of ministers. In the beginning only I gave you the list of prime ministers, and some of the important ministers I am giving it over here. These are some of the important ministers, like Home Minister, Defense Minister, Finance Minister, Railway Ministers. All these I have given over here. You can go through this. They are the present ministers in charge of the various ministries All these are there. State ministers, cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, everyone is given over here. So you can go through it. Okay. Now, so as I told you, please go through it again and again. And finally, assignment and homework or the home assignment link is given in the description. Link, click it, you'll download it and do the work. Please complete your work, and let's meet again in the next class. In the next class, I'm going to start history. In the next class, I'll be starting with history. So now we completed how many chapters? We completed 2 chapters. Union legislature also we completed, and union executive also we completed. So 2 chapters we completed. So as I promised earlier that I'll start history after completing union executive. So we have completed it. Now you complete your work, and the next class when we meet, I'll be coming with history topic. So till the time, take care, stay safe, and bye bye.